So, welcome to the Life Career Roadmap YouTube channel. And today I have my special guest, Peter Mazzucato. Peter, welcome to the Life Career Roadmap channel.
Thanks. It's very nice to be here, Sina.
Peter, normally I ask my guests where you come from and also professional background. I know you are from Australia. You have been born in Australia, but I would like to ask you where this Italian surname comes from a long time ago or a recent
Yeah,
travel, let's say to say.
yeah, sure. Well, my father came from a little village not very far from Venice,
Mhm.
and he arrived in Australia around about 1952. And that's where the name Mazzucato came from northern Italy.
Okay. And could you tell more about your father way to Australia? So how
Yeah,
your father came to Australia and what the reason he
yeah, sure.
came to Australia?
Well, my father was actually in the Second World War, and Europe was an absolute mess after the Second World War, and things were pretty tough there. So he heard there was opportunities in Australia. So he decided to come to Australia to make his fortune and go back to Italy. And he arrived here by ship in those days. Australia really needed a lot of people here for just like they do now, really, to
Mhm.
help to build the country, to grow the country as well. And so he arrived here in 1952, and he spent the first 2 years working in the bush in the southwestern part of Western Australia, bulldozing trees and putting in roads on farms and connecting up small towns. And that's what he had to do just to pay for his shipping fare to come from Italy to Australia.
So did he come by himself or he came with a family and like siblings
Yeah.
or I suppose he was not married at time or was he married that time already?
No, no, he wasn't. He wasn't married. He actually came by himself, but just prior to coming here, he ended up becoming acquainted with friends, with people that became friends, and they were friends for the rest of his life. So they met on the ship, or just before that, and they all arrived here in Perth, and they remained friends until they all passed away.
Okay. So is your mom Australian or is she Italian too?
No, my mum's Australian. She's got Polish and Dutch background. So, but she was born in Australia, but she was a first generation Australian.
Okay.
Yeah,
So in your case, you are second generation of Australians for her and first generation of Australia for your father.
exactly. Yeah.
Good. So, and did you grow up in Southwest, or did your father move to Perth?
Yeah. No, he moved to Perth before I was born. So he met my mother a couple of years before I was born in Perth, and yeah, he's been here. Well, he was here his whole life.
Okay. And growing up, how was for you being a family, Australian, half Italian? So, how was the culture in your family, your own family, bringing two cultures together?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was hard for my father because he grew up on a farm. He was poorly educated, and Australia was a very different place. We'd go to school, learn, and bring back the culture of Australia, if you like. And I mean, he worked with Australian people. He knew what Australians were like, but he worked in basically worked with as a basic wage earner. So most of the people there were of a lower socioeconomic background, and so they tended to be the rougher part of the Australian element, if you like.
Mm.
Yeah, so he tried to sort of, I guess it's a blend of Australian and European culture, and not just the European culture, but old European culture, because there's quite an age difference between my mum and my father, and so he came from a period of time, the Second World War. That was a long time ago. So people's all through the whole world had a different view about things. So it was challenging. It was challenging, that's for sure. But we got by.
Okay. And you have siblings too?
Yeah, I've got three brothers. Yeah.
Okay. So, and for you, time to go to high school, and probably people asking, what do you want to do when you grow up, Peter? So, what did you have in mind before deciding about a career? So, did you have an idea that you would do, or was peers giving you suggestions,
Yeah.
teachers? How was the decision of choosing a career for you in that
Yeah.
time?
Well, that's a really good question, Seema, because most people are influenced by the people around them. They're influenced by their friends, by their family, by teachers, maybe. But because I grew up in a lower socioeconomic area, there was very few good examples.
Mm.
Few good examples, and so I really didn't have any idea. I mean, if you're looking at something like a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, they were totally outside the realms of possibility for me. So after I finished high school, I pretty much travelled and experienced new things in life. So it was a few years before I eventually came to the conclusion that I should go and do some further education. So I was actually 23 when I started uni. And at that time, again, I didn't go and ask for advice. In fact, there was very little advice you could get back in those days, back in the 80s. So I ended up choosing something that I thought I'd be passionate to do. So I love the ocean, like fishing and surfing and being on boats. So I thought, I know, I'll become a marine biologist. And yeah, so that's how I made my decision.
So, and then you went there to do your course. So the course was everything that you expected from, or like learning everything and having the passion to become a profession, or was just like, oh my goodness, it was completely different than I thought.
Yeah, it was pretty much completely different to what I thought. It was pretty hard. There's a lot of things there that were difficult to do. I had to use a lot of all my willpower to stay there and complete my degree. It wasn't an easy task for me. Also, trying to survive, working part time while you're studying full time. I would work at night. I worked at a hotel, so I'd work all night, and then I'd come home and then get on my bicycle and ride to uni, and then finish and do some study, and then have 1 or 2 hours sleep, and then go to work again. And I'll do that two or three times a week.
Wow. And
So,
so you finished your degree. Did you work in the field?
no, I didn't. And that's probably I did do a bit of volunteer work,
Mhm.
which was helpful. But that was probably a mistake on reflection. I should have tried much harder to try and find some work in the field. It would have been it would have been much more valuable to have done that and gained some experience, some real hands-on experience, understanding about what was really involved in becoming a marine biologist.
Mhm. And so if you finished, not, didn't work in the field, what did you do next then? To because now is the big pressure. You need to have a profession, you need to have a job to pay the
Yeah.
bills. What did
Yeah.
you
Well, my primary degree was in marine biology, and my secondary degree was in geology, my minor degree. So one of the first jobs I had was actually working as a field assistant with an exploration company, and I worked in the Northern Territory. I worked in Queensland on gold mines and well, not so much gold mines, but exploration areas.
Mhm.
So I worked in a productive mine in middle central far northern Queensland near Townsville for about 6 months or so, and I also worked for about 6 months on a mine. It was called Mount Todd, which was near Katherine, and I spent a few months there working there. But conditions were tough. Pay was very poor. It was about $70 a day, working 12 hours a day. And after you finish work, you go to your camp and cook dinner.
Oh my goodness.
It's
So you didn't
yeah,
last longer there, right?
it
Did
was
you?
long enough. It was long enough. I didn't think I needed to stay there much longer to know I didn't like doing it. Um, so then my next job was working. I ended up getting a job. I thought, no, bugger this geology. I'm going to go and see if I can use my marine biology. So I got myself a job working in the tourist industry, and it was great fun. It was a lot of fun working out of Mission Beach, going out on a big shark cat, like a
Mhm.
23-meter cat. We'd take tourists out and take them snorkeling and diving. And that was a great experience. And I did that for about 9 months. And then I decided it was time to come back to Western Australia and see my family. And that's when I started to get some serious work in marine biology. I started working with a company, a consulting environmental company, doing a lot of work on well, heavy industry, the industrial strip in Kwinana, coastal developments like salt mines, salt flats, and coastal developments, other types like marine developments, and then eventually into the oil and gas industry. So we're doing a lot of habitat surveying work, and there's some great experiences there. So I did that for a few years,
Mm.
but the fluctuation in the commodities and commodity price, we had a lot of recessions then through 87, 91, 94, 97.
Yeah.
So it's very tough to have for your work to be continuous. And it also involved a lot of time away. So when you're working away all the time, and then you might have gaps in your work whilst you're waiting for the work to come up. So I thought it took me a while, but eventually I thought this isn't really sustainable. I need to find something else. I didn't have the passion to do this type of work, and then like go overseas and work somewhere where there was more sustainable work. So I decided that it was time to change careers. And yeah.
Then you decide to change career after uh,
Hmm.
getting your knowledge that you had in the field. Uh, and what kind of career came up to you then after thinking it's time to? It was something that you went to find, did some research, or was something that just came in front of you as an opportunity?
Yeah, more of the same. It's more of whatever came up, whatever seemed like a good idea. I would
Mhm.
just go do whatever seemed like a good idea. So I would spend a year or so doing a particular type of job. I started a business, which was, I think that was probably the thing that I enjoyed the most. Not so much the work that I did, but working in a business.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that, to build something.
Mhm.
Um, but it took me a few years. There was a lot of transition, a lot of exploration about what I like to do, and it really wasn't until about 99, 2000 where I found something that I really liked.
And
And
what?
yeah, so look, I mentioned to you earlier on, I wasn't sure what to do, and I ended up speaking to someone, an ex-geologist working for a recruitment company, and we discussed, what the economy was doing. Things were pretty bad at that time. He said, "Well, you probably know most of the people, as there wasn't many people doing marine biology." He said, "You've got a network of people where you probably have connections with enough people to be able to find work if you wanted to work there." He said, "But after having spoken to you, I think you'd have you ever thought about doing recruitment?" Wasn't something that I'd considered. But after discussing it and doing a bit of research into it, I thought I'd give it a try. And lo and behold, it was something that I really, really liked. And so it's something that I've done for around 23 years. And yeah, it's something. But you know what? The interesting thing is that in the process of working as a in the process of working as a recruiter, I started to understand what the whole process was about, how to find work,
Yes.
uh, and I started to get an understanding about, planning for career and doing research and understanding what companies need. It became a lot more of a skill rather than just something that you just popped into your head. So I gained a lot of knowledge about that, and I'm just very lucky, I guess, that I found something that I like just through trial and error. Trial and error of 8, 10 years. It's a long time.
And it's like demotivating because it seems everywhere you go and do something, it's not that kind of a inspirational situation that you feel that you are contributing, doing something that you like, but
Mm,
find the way you found like, and especially realizing what takes to be able to build a career
mm,
was like a aha moment for you, probably.
absolutely, definitely an aha moment. I think this, looking back now, if I had had that aha moment, if I had that discovery, maybe 10 or 15 years earlier, what would my life have been like to have started at a younger age? Because at the end of the day, all that you've got to show for yourself is your life, is the years that you spend here. And if you spend too much time drifting from one thing to another, you can't build any foundation. You can't build anything to work upon. So it's very important to be able to make those lessons or learn those lessons as soon as possible. And if you try and do it by yourself, it may take you years. It may, in fact, it may never happen.
That's right. So in recruitment, which industries have you been more involved with? So it's whole
Hmm.
spectrum of human resource, or are you specifically recruiting or doing any other aspect of human resource
Yeah,
jobs?
yeah, sure. The areas that I've worked in are mining and resources, mining, oil and gas, construction, and engineering. So
Okay.
working with professional people. So most of that has been in Western Australia,
Mhm.
and working in the resource projects, the large resource projects, um, both mining and oil and gas.
Okay. And these areas, we can say we have lots of foreigners and or newcomers working. So, have you been working with lots of foreigners coming to Australia or relocating with the company or coming as to try their luck to get the feet inside of a Australian job market?
Yeah, sure. Look, lots of people, all sorts of backgrounds, people from all over the world, from South Africa, Zimbabwe, UK, America, India, Pakistan, the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, um, Philippines, people from all over the world. There are a lot of people from all over the world working in the industry, both in cities and also working away as well. So in fact, we would not have been able to do what we have done without their input, without their help. Absolutely.
That's right. So, and Peter, regarding these newcomers here working in the industries, mainly our resource industries, um, what are the main difficulties that they have uh, finding employment in Australia for the first time?
Mm. Yeah, it's extremely challenging to go to a new area because the very first thing that a recruiter or a hiring manager will say is, "Oh, that person doesn't have local experience." Generally, their concern is how will that person work with other people? How will they interact with other people? That's the first thing. And secondly, is what type of businesses and what sort of business models have they worked with before? Will they be able to understand and quickly get used to a different way of working? They're probably the two biggest concerns.
Mhm. And in this case, what do you see the concern of the organization, right? And what would be the concern to the other side that you have seen?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of people, when they first start looking for work, they generally this is what they do. They go and start looking on the job boards, and they go, "Oh, there's a job for a mechanical engineer. I can do that." They get their resume and they send it off, and then they press the button. It's so easy to do. I'll just send the resume off, and then they see another job and they send a resume off for that one. And in a short period of time, they've got dozens of resumes out there. And then unfortunately, they don't get any response. They don't get any feedback because there's literally thousands of resumes floating around all over the place. It's hard work trying to keep up with that if you're a recruiter. So one of the biggest challenges is they don't get feedback and they don't know how they're going. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. And so that's probably but that's their number one mistake. And that's one thing that a lot of people do when they come here. And then what happens, what leads on from that is because they don't get any feedback, then whatever concerns or fears they have in their head become magnified. And it could be wrong. They don't like me because of A, B, C. And the thing is, it might have nothing to do with that at all. But because they're not getting any feedback, they make up their own stories.
Yeah.
So, so it goes two ways. Some people will learn, and some people just won't learn. Some people will try for a while and they go, okay, it's not working, I'll give up. And they'll get themselves any job, maybe as an Uber driver or working as a console operator with BP, or maybe working, working with in hospitalities or something like that. So it can be really challenging and really difficult for people that have got the skills and knowledge to get their start.
Yes, that's right. Especially when you talk about the resume, because many
Mm.
people believe first they have a different resume. The resume that they bring is different from the Australian standard, and
Mm.
many people have more than a resume. They have a confession of their whole life, as like 4, 5, 6 pages. And for a newcomer who has achieved so much in their career, studying and acquiring knowledge, sometimes it's very difficult for them to remove things that are not necessary for a job application. And they
Mm.
feel, but I have done this. Yes, you have done. No one is telling that you don't have done this. But it's the question, the job doesn't require you to know this right now. You're applying for the job that needs what do you know, but not everything that you know that is extended. You may be able to use this when you are in the job, but for the application, they don't need to know everything if it's not related to the job, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that I face every time when I work with my mentees and they come and they want to add everything because they want to show they are able to. And the other thing is also believing that it's just a piece of paper that they need to put all the evidence. And I know that you mentioned to me before regarding the application of a job or a career is more than a resume. Is that before that? Could you explain more? What do you think about this kind
Yeah.
of preparation?
Yeah, sure. Um, well, I suppose there's a couple of ways to look at that. I'll just explain briefly why it's important, why a resume is important from the company's perspective. For the company, the only exposure they have of the person generally is that piece of paper, and they read it like a person's life. They want to understand about where the person started, how their career grew, if they've got how many years of experience in each job, have they had career development, and things like that. However, if the resume is not targeted, then they will just ignore it. So they'll get put in they'll just get rejected basically. Okay. Now, from an applicant's perspective, the resume really, a lot of people use that as the first thing. It should really be the last thing. Really, what people need to do when they start their career investigation is they need to start doing research on companies and get an understanding of the marketplace. What sort of companies are closest in skills to what they've got themselves. What connections can they make with people? Who can they talk to? Where can they get more information about what it's like to work there? Finding people to talk to, perhaps finding mentors as well. So all these types of avenues are very important. So the investigation side is very important, very critical right at the very beginning. That's number one. Number two is also about personal branding. It's about how do people see you? How do you come across? How do you stand out from your competition? So by being able to understand what they're looking for and then to be able to portray you in a way that makes you stand out is incredibly important. Okay.
Yes. And especially for foreigners, newcomers, um, because of the rejection that they get applying for many jobs, and normally I'll tell them when you send jobs everywhere, your frustration is equivalent to the number of applications that you do, right? So because you'll be rejected because you're not showing really who you are and what you bring to contribute. And that the point is targeting and having the energy more on things that are really important, as knowing the company and also reading the job advertisement, the first thing, right? Knowing what they are asking for. Because what I have seen many times, newcomers come with the job title that they had back home. And then arriving in Australia, that job title sometimes doesn't even exist or means something else. And then
Absolutely.
they start applying for the job, thinking that the job is for them, but it's not for them. And they get, but it's everything in there, it's the name, it's everything, and they reject me. And they start thinking that they have a problem, that Australians don't like them, they are racist, they don't give you opportunities. And it's not the case. It's just,
Yeah, it's true. It's not the case because you just have to look around and see all the people from all over the world who are working already. So it's not the case. But it's certainly, you really need to have a plan and a plan in place to begin with, and know what needs to be done. If you don't know what needs to be done, then you need to really go and get some help and say, okay, how can I find a job? What's the best way?
yes. And so, Peter, as you have been helping people, especially to the side of the company that sees the resumes, would you say that is a very important point besides of targeting the resume to that job? What other things are important to have in the resume that shows the organization that, like me, I'm ready for you, I'm there for you, and you can take my hand and I'll be able to help you. Just looking at the resume.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the most important things is looking at the selection criteria of what the company is actually looking for. I should actually, before I say that, I just want to take one step back. One of the problems often with companies when they send out job applications or advertisements, some companies take a lot of time and write down precisely what they're looking for, which is great. It helps you enormously. But sometimes they can be a generic advertisement too. Just like there are people applying to jobs that have got no idea about how to apply, there's also hiring managers that have got no idea how to hire properly. Just put out an advert. We'll find somebody. We'll sort through them all. Okay. So it's really important to be able to get a good understanding about what they're looking for. And sometimes, and a lot of times, it's actually worthwhile contacting the company and getting clarification on anything you don't quite understand, or also trying to find out what's the most important areas to focus on, so that you can then highlight, demonstrate those areas of your skills to make it stand out. Because ultimately, the hiring manager is going to be looking specifically for what they want, whether they've said it exactly or whether they even left it out. They'll still be looking for that particular skill. So if you know what it is, then you can put it in your resume so they can see it.
Yes, that's right. So, and regarding cover letter, now there is a discussion about, especially in America, if a cover letter is necessary or not, because some recruiters, they go straight to resume or they go to LinkedIn, and sometimes cover letter comes first. They see the cover letter. So what is the trend in Australia? I don't know if you can answer the question, but it's just out of curiosity. The trend in Australia is a cover letter is still very impactful or important, or it's something that is to decide and maybe used or not.
Yeah. Cover letters can be very important. If a company ever asks for a cover letter, you make sure you put a cover letter in there, because they're looking for specific things. There's a reason why they're asking for it. They want to understand what your communication is like. Also, it's pretty hard to rewrite your resume every single time you apply for a job. Having a cover letter allows you to answer specifically the selection criteria and demonstrate any achievements or accomplishments that you've been able to achieve. So they're actually quite powerful. I look at a resume a little bit different to most. The way I look at it is a bit like a concertina. So if they've got skills that need to be highlighted, then you can expand upon that. If there's things that are irrelevant, then you can contract it. But you don't want to have, you don't want your resume to be like 20 pages like War and Peace. You want something to be, reasonable size based upon your experience. That gives people enough of an idea of what you can do, but not over the top, because people won't read it. It'll actually detract from your application.
Okay. So let's see now a resume. Many people think the resume can get them a job. Sometimes, yes, but resume mainly is to get you an interview, right?
Exactly.
So then it's the next step. So someone who gets an interview and going to an interview with a panel, and what is the main thing, especially for a foreigner that doesn't know the style of interviews in Australia? What do they can expect, or what the panel expect from them when they go to an interview? What is the click?
Okay. Well, panel interviews are quite specific, and they generally they for organisations, particularly government organisations, tend to have panels of people, where they have a committee of people, where they're trying to cover off on certain areas where they've got a large organisation, so it's quite bureaucratic. In situations like that, each person will have specific questions that they want to ask, and it's going to be some of them will be behavioural type questions. Some of them will be situational type questions. So there'll be questions to try and pick out the things that's most important to each of the people on the panel. So that's what they're looking for. As far as coming along to an interview, it's really important to be prepared. You need to really understand what the company's looking for and doing some good research beforehand so that you can answer those questions that they have. You should always have a number of examples that relate specifically to the selection criteria that you can demonstrate that you've achieved, because they'll definitely ask you those sort of questions. The last thing you want to do is go there without being prepared, that's for sure. When you go into an interview, you need to be dressed appropriately for the role. If you're going for a job as a labourer, you wouldn't go in there with a suit and tie. Similarly, if you're going in there for a professional role, you would not be going in there in your casual jeans and thongs. So you've got to dress to the market. That's the first thing. Also, when you're speaking to people, you need to be, go in there positive, be upbeat. Some people, if they've had a lot of setbacks, they can start to get quite depressed. They're just waiting to get the no. So they're almost giving themselves up before they've started. So you need to be upbeat. You need to prepare yourself and psych yourself into a good situation beforehand. So be positive and talk to people when you're talking to people. Look them in the eye when you're talking to them. Have a bit of a smile as you're talking to the people, or quite open and quite clear in your communication. An important thing too is also, if you're not sure what the question is, you need to ask them. I'm not quite clear. What would you like to know? I don't quite understand the question. So if you don't know what they're saying, don't start talking about something until you've got a clear idea about what they're getting to. Yeah.
One question that I get a lot from people is it okay to talk about salary negotiations in the first interview?
Probably not. Probably not. I mean, ideally, you want to get an understanding of what you're going into before you even start talking about salary. You might have a job that is a very simple job, and if you've got your expectations set at, just saying 100,000, and their maximum salary offer is 90,000, but if you knew what was involved, you might accept the 90,000 if you knew that it was working from home, flexibility, depending on what was required. So if you go in there with a preset idea of salary, then that can actually work against you. So it's best to get an understanding about what they're looking for. If people are very persistent or insistent about salaries, then usually what I say is I look at a range and I say, well, it depends. It depends on the type of role. I haven't heard, I don't understand the role specifically yet. I don't know all the specifics about it. But generally, I'm looking at a range. It could be between 90 and 120,000, and depending on the role, that's the sort of salary that I'll be looking at accepting. But it depends. If it's a very difficult job or there's a lot of high expectations, I want at the top end. So gives that way, it gives people an idea, a ballpark idea. Now, in the process of the interview, now for some people, they will set their sights. They'll say, if the guy wants more than a certain amount of money, we're going to discount it. By having that range, that actually gets you around that situation.
Yeah, it's open to negotiation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these days, salaries are very negotiable right across the board.
Yes. And the other thing is regarding the questions, because there is a pressure that they come and say, well, I hear on the internet that we need to ask questions to people that are interviewing us. So what's your view about the questions that interviewees do or ask to the interviewer?
Yeah.
They are interesting and show that they are genuine, not just copy and paste from the internet.
Sure. Okay. It's one of the most important things you can do. If you something like 30%, more than 30%, I don't know the exact number if there is such a thing, but more than 30% of people that receive an offer leave within the first 6 months. Okay, that's a very significant amount. And why is that? Why is that? Well, I thought the job would be about this. I didn't know it was going to be about that. I didn't know the culture was this. I didn't know they didn't invest in anything. I didn't know, that they want me to do 3 jobs. So it's really important to know what is it that you're prepared to do and what you're not prepared to do. So, for example, if you know that you need to be able to take some time off for family, you may have elderly parents or young children, you need to have some flexibility. You'd say one of the questions, a very important question might be, is there flexibility? Is it a family-friendly sort of environment? Can you give us an example of, how does the environment work? Or, you might be looking at advancing your career. Are there career advancement opportunities? Where could I position myself? What opportunities could there be? And you'd really want to be able to talk about that shortly, at that time, where you want a fairly good, oh, we'll talk about it later. That's not good enough. Well, look, there's opportunities in the organization. This is a sort of career path potentially that you could do based upon, certain milestones being hit, for example, or salary. Maybe you organise a lower salary, but it's a bit of a compromise. So I'll take a lower salary if we can look at reviewing my salary after 6 months and demonstrate my ability.
Yeah.
It could be about what sort of training is available. I need to upskill myself a bit. What sort of opportunities have I got to be able to learn new things?
Or even working remotely, that would be some situation, right? And I remember when I went for an interview to work as a project coordinator during my academia time, one thing that I asked about was, do I need to run statistical data all the time, like doing all the analysis? Because I said, despite I have my background in this, it's not something that I enjoy. I don't enjoy staying in front of the computer all the time. I prefer be talking to people and collecting data, but not analyzing the data. So they said, no, this is the component of this research is more for you to outreach. And for me was something that I was very keen. And I was later on, I found out that I was the only candidate. There was not a doctor. I was disputing with 28 doctors, and I was the one getting the job. So it was very surprising at that time. So
right.
yeah, and Peter, nowadays the Australia, and not just Australia, the world is crazy about people with skills, right? So in Europe, Asia, and here also in Australia. So everyone or companies, organization are struggling to find people with skills that they can retain in their organizations. So what kind of jobs are out there now, or companies that are available? But at the same time, we have people that cannot get jobs. What do you believe is in between them?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Seema. The thing that I see about that is that people really don't understand what companies are looking for. If they knew what companies were looking for, they would go and get those skills straight away. And that's the biggest issue. So, for example, you might have people, I'll just use, for example, mining engineer, mine planning. they need to have a specific type of software. If the person's not willing to gain that software knowledge or invest in themselves, then they'll get left out in the cold. So, it's important for people to look at where the skills are going in their industry and to constantly improve those skills and constantly looking at being able to gain those skills one way or another. So if you've got skills that are in demand, you will never have a problem finding jobs. And it's just a matter of learning, being on top of your discipline. Being on top of your discipline as far as, what's happening in my industry, what can I do, what things can I learn? By doing those sort of things, that will put you in strong demand.
Yes, that's right. And what is the future of work for Australia? So we know we are moving now towards more evidence that AI is here to stay. And you see that AI has been for a while, but many people didn't notice. And now it's evident. So what is the future of work as people are so afraid of not having a job in the future because of technology?
Well, I've worked in recruitment for 23 years and I've had a job for over 40 years. And I've seen constantly there's always been new jobs. I remember working in a office in 1979 where they had a typing pool. Okay, so one person would write a report, it would go sent off to people in a typing pool. Now, those jobs haven't disappeared, they've just changed. So now, those people would be upskilled and people would end up doing a lot of different jobs. So work is becoming more complex in many ways. And as it becomes more complex, we need ways of being able to simplify things. And that's why we have these tools, these other tools. So I don't see that AI is going to be a threat. The only people it's going to be a threat to are people that are not prepared to learn and try new things. If people are willing to learn about it, then they'll be in strong demand. It'll just be a tool that they use like any other tool, as we've seen over centuries, really.
Okay. And talking about technology and jobs in this situation, as a recruiter, can you recognize when you get a resume written by AI instead of the person?
Interesting that you should say that, because I see all sorts of resumes and I can tell straight away if they've been written by a resume farm, for example. So AI would not be a lot different. I have seen resumes written through that way. At the end of the day, what's most important is what I said earlier on. It's about understanding the selection criteria and being able to show yourself and how you can help a company. What is it about? What's your personal branding? How can you help a company? By showing yourself, that's really what's going to get you across the line. Having a piece of paper, a pretty piece of paper with pictures on it, or written in a certain style, in a flourish, is not going to get you the job. It's actually going to be the company's looking for something specific. You need to find out what that is and then demonstrate that you're the right person.
That's right. And for me, working as career counselor, I use the resume to help people to understand their story, not just as career, but the progress that they have been achieving in their career life. And normally I use as a very therapeutic tool for them to express themselves and recognize their abilities. And because when they go to an interview, having a resume, like a farm resume, and having someone who knows what they are writing and talking about, it's a huge difference, right? Because you have the beautiful resume, fluffy and showing everything, but then you go to an interview and you don't know anything about what you wrote. That was written for them.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So, Peter, is there anything else that you'd like to add regarding recruitment for people that don't know the system and the culture in Australia, and how they can be successful to achieve what they want to achieve, like a job that they feel that they are really contributing and feel that they are satisfied doing it?
Yeah, sure. One thing that I think will be very valuable is to actually see about becoming more acquainted with recruitment companies, and not just companies, but individuals. So find somebody that specializes in an area that you work in, and then get their help. They won't be able to help you a lot because they're getting paid by the client, but they would certainly be happy to give you some guidance about what you can do about your resume to make it look a bit better, or questions that you might have about the industry, or even they might even be able to tell you a bit about what companies are looking for, what their expectations are, what skills that you should focus on. So that's definitely one thing that I would recommend. And I guess the other thing too is it's just really important. I mean, people think that the cost of getting a coach or a counselor is a lot, but the cost of not getting a counselor or a coach is far, far more. You know, I don't know, what could I compare 10 years of wandering through the desert trying to find something that I wanted to do? That's a long time. That's hundreds, maybe $1 million.
That's
So
right.
so, you know, to get some help from somebody that can guide you is worth a lot of money. It's worth a lot.
Yeah.
And also for your sense of self-worth and value. And yeah. So
And especially like your example as um, born in Australia, had all the knowledge about the language, the system. You even though got lost in your own perspective of what I can do with my life. Like imagine someone who comes here, doesn't know the system, the culture, doesn't know people, they get lost, right? So someone who is really willing to invest in their career, and what I see a lot, and many people ask me, what should I do? They are even outside of Australia. Should I go as a student? And they have experience. They have sometimes PhD, MBAs, and they want to come here to study and say, what's the point you want in your life to study more for what? What's the purpose of this? Right? You can apply for, now we have so many visas that you can apply to come to Australia with your skills. Take advantage, because then you'll be working full time. When you come in as a student, you have half of your time to study and be thinking that you need to survive, finding money to pay for your course, for your visa, and it's a burden. So, but they get, oh, it's much easier if I go as a student. I'm not sure, right?
well, look, I can give you an example of a client that I worked with a while ago. Initially came to me, been working in this organization in the wastewater treatment for 8 years, had 5 degrees, had a master's, MBA, had experience in mechanical engineering, a whole range of things. I can't recall what they were. And when he saw me, he says, "Look, I want to get a management job. I really would like to work in management, but I'm not getting any opportunities. I've applied so many times that my company's not recognizing me. I was thinking about doing a PhD. What do you think?"
Yeah,
So anyway, to cut a long story short, we did some work together. We looked at what his real problems were. Within 3 months, he had a job at the next level. Instead of being a process worker, he ended up getting a job as a project engineer. And he's just recently left that organization at a much higher level again, managing other people. So, you know, he was going down a rabbit hole. If he didn't do something about it, didn't talk to somebody, he would have got another degree.
that's right. That's right. It's just putting more pressure on them because they have all this qualification and it's still not employable. It's a mystery for them, right? So how come I have everything? I'm overqualified. Is that normally
Yeah.
they complain about? I'm overqualified for Australia. It's not like that. So it's just the little things that you don't know behind the scenes that would be nice if you take the time or to learn that you don't have time because you need to go and find a job for yourself and pay for the bills, or get someone to help you to get the real scene in front of you. So that's why I find, like 2 days ago, I also got two people that rang me from overseas and asked me my opinion. I said, this is my opinion, but here is the information, read it before you decide it. I cannot decide for you, but this is the best I see as the best option. but it's your decision by the end of the day, not mine. So some people they get so afraid, and especially because applying through their skills to come to Australia can get little bit longer, but waiting that a little bit longer could be safer than come as straight away and get all the hurdles in front of them. So it's a decision, it's a choice. Anyway, and many people want me to work with their visa. I would say I don't have credentials to work with visas. I just know the system, but it's not, I don't have credentials to give you any advice. So get someone else. I help you when you have your visa approved, coming to Australia. Okay, that's the time when you can work together to get you in the right place. So Peter, now something outside of Korea. Having an Italian father and a mother that has Dutch and other European heritage. So what kind of food is childhood food for you? Like that you say, oh, it's like home when I was a child. What kind of food?
Yeah, well, my father liked very traditional type of food, very traditional Italian type of food. And my mother was a first generation Australian, and they lived in the wheatbelt area in Western Australia. So they had very traditional Australian type of food, believe it or not.
Oh.
So, at home we would have whatever. Both my parents worked, so sometimes we'd have mum would make up some chop suey, or we'd have
Oh.
spaghetti, or we'd have a curry. So we'd have a range of things. So probably not what you expected to hear.
Yeah, I was expect like more Italian. Normally the Italians are getting more Italian, right?
I
Because
would say probably about 55-60% Italian, and the rest was whatever.
so, and if you had to choose like a favorite dish from the whole spectrum of your ethnicity, which one would be more representative of you? Like you would
Uh,
like to eat?
yeah, I really like Italian food. One of my favorite dishes, actually, I've become a bit more vegetarian in recent times for health reasons. Ratatouille, I really love that. Roasted vegetables, really love it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's pretty hard to go past. My wife made some lasagna the other night. It was wonderful. Does a great job. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, Peter, so thank you very much for coming and sharing your story and also your experience in as a career coach and a HR person. Um, and another thing that I need to ask you, normally when people write about their summary or they call themselves HR, they say HR professional because you normally say engineer, doctor, right, pharmacist, but HR, you miss something. You need to be the professional, right?
Human resource professional, I guess so, because it
Yeah,
covers it's a very broad, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, yeah, well, I call myself a recruiter and a
re-
career coach.
yeah.
So,
Uh,
um,
recruit is recruitment coach that you say.
well, I do job search coaching,
Yeah.
and I also help people to career transition as well. So if they're working in one industry and they want to transition to another, and also to get promotions in their jobs.
Also
So,
to go up. Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's
sometimes
wonderful.
it's a bit of a surprise for some people about the things that they need to know and they don't realize. So,
That's right. A career strategy helps a lot, right?
absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you very much for coming and for sharing your story and your expertise. And I look forward for other conversations that we have outside of the online world when you have our meetings for our practice together.
Thanks, Stephen. It's been wonderful to speak to you too.
Thank you. And for you watching these episodes, thank you very much. Remember to subscribe and leave your comments below. And see you next. Bye-bye. Well done. We did it. How was it?
That was interesting. It wasn't quite what I expected, to be honest with you.
What did you expect?
I don't know. I think I thought it would flow a bit better from me, you know.
I did.
Uh,
You did wonderful.
yeah, I don't know. I think my my memory about certain things. I'd think of some stories, but they wouldn't come out. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It was still
No,
good fun.
no, look, it's a wonderful. You like the syndrome of no, I need to be better. No, you are wonderful. You did pretty good, and was this is my second time interview someone from human resource, but the other one was more different situation, and it was wonderful because you could show the career is not a straight line, right? And and the good thing about your you sharing your story is you being an Australian and getting lost in the middle of I don't know what to do. So because normally newcomers they think Australians are so assertive and they have everything in their hands. Is that the perceptions that they have. So your story was wonderful to show that it happens to anyone if you are a newcomer or not, wherever you are. Even if you are back home, you may face this kind of situation. Job, it's a job itself, right? It takes time. Employment takes time. And the satisfaction with your career takes time too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
people change over time. You know, what's important to you at one stage of your life, you go through different stages. And so things change. And
Yeah.
so as things change, you need to make changes.
That's right. So, and now I'd like to ask you because we have been talking about this, but it's how you can help each other because I have now people ready to go to work. I normally start helping them to reach out to others when they have their resume decently done, right? So it's something that is presentable. So we finished our last resume session last Tuesday. We do normally 3 sessions together and I review and I give my feedback. So, and then probably by next week, the majority of them, they have a decent resume to present. And I know you said you work with people from overseas. So how can I forward them to you or introduce them to you working for the company that you work and how is the possibility?
Yeah, sure. So how do you work with them and how long do you work with them? I just want to get an understanding about where they're up to if I was to work with them.
Yeah, no, when they come to me, they stay 14 weeks with me, learning, right? And then after that, they can stay with me for a year because they stay in the using the platform for a year. And the main thing for me is helping them to reach out to recruiters that can help them to go to a company. And I have been reaching out to companies that work with foreigners. And the main things that they face, one is the career gap that some have around. I got a guy with 17 years career gap. And
Oh,
17. And
was he in jail?
no, that's the point. He came to Australia and didn't stop doing work, doing school, right? Going to school to study, and then got lost. But he is a chemical engineer with 11 or 13 years experience in the field, was a very senior when came to Australia to study and then got lost.
Hmm.
And then I have also people that don't have local experience. Normally what I do with them, I send them to do some volunteer work to get used to get networking, someone that can be the reference for them. So to build up this. And that's the main point. And the other point is some are in the student visa. So they have only part-time available to work like 24 hours per week. And that's one limitation they want, especially in engineering area. It's a big limitation for them.
Yeah, yeah, that would be challenging. Yeah, so they would really need to work with specialists.
Yeah.
So, for example, chemical engineering, there's 4 or 5 different areas as far as chemical engineers are concerned. And so is it wet process? Is it slurry type of process?
Yeah.
What sort then? And then looking at different companies, there's just so much out there. So I was working with a lithium company, and they were looking for very specific chemical engineers to do some work a while ago. But at the moment, I'm working as much as I've worked with mining, engineering, and construction, at the moment I'm managing a legal recruitment company. So,
Wow.
providing legal support and business support and business services.
So
So,
I have one, sorry to cut you out. I have one lawyer, um, and she's specialized in cybersecurity.
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, but she's a student.
Yep. It's
And
really with this for students. It's really hard because the legal companies don't want to take them on as a paralegal because they see them as they want someone that's going to stay there longer, and they know that the lawyers want to get themselves a job as a lawyer.
but she doesn't want to be a lawyer. She decided to do the other side. It's a compliance and everything else. That's what she likes, ICT. That's why she decided to do. And then she came here. She has a pretty good English,
Yep.
but is working as a waitress, and it's killing her because his self-esteem went down. She said, "I
Okay.
cannot believe." And
Okay, well, look, we could. I can't guarantee anything, but if you want to send a resume through, I'll introduce it to Rihanna, Phoebe, and Rachel, and see if there's something that they might have that might be suitable. So we deal with people in litigation, family law. There's 10, 12 areas of law, pretty much every area of law we work with there, and that's in the support area.
yes, I have another two very strong candidates. One is an industrial engineer, but he also worked for the big projects in homeless for the government. And he quite liked that one, but more in project management and project consultation. So he's very strong, very, very strong. And that's the point of, do you want to come back to engineering? Do you want to stay in this field? So for him, he's like, I don't know yet. So I'm working with him. And the other one is a senior contract analyst. He spent 15 years in the same company. Since he started his career life, he stayed there, like came very bottom and grew up. But he decided to move to Australia. And now as a student, he's studying also web development because he quite liked that one. But it's part-time. And I said, they don't know me before, otherwise I'll let them don't do this. I said, look, if you get your qualifications recognized and get your skills assessment, probably you cut all these courses that you need to pay for and start working, right? And it's frustrating, Peter, very frustrating, because they have everything, all the ability to be working right now, but the limitation of the visa is
Mm,
killer.
I know what you mean. It's a really real challenge for sure.
Yeah, and just to give an idea, they buy these courses from agencies. They don't let them know, the agencies don't let them know about the qualification, recognition, and assessment unless they do at least 2 rounds of courses with them.
It's disgusting.
When they come to me, I said, have you done this? No, they told me that it was so expensive that I said, $1,000 you pay for this. They say, what is $1,000 to get you out of this? I got someone who said to me, I want to go to Australia and has an MBA and I want to do another master. I said, why do you want to do another master's? And she said, oh, because then I have 2 years after that I can stay. I said, how much are you paying for that? Oh, $55,000. I said, $5,000 resolve your life.
Mm.
And that's
Mm.
it.
It's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
So it's like, oh my goodness. But I'm there. I'm on the way to help them to understand. And if I can educate people before they come to Australia about their possibilities, that's my mission, to educate them. All the possibilities that they can have, but they can choose. And that's it. They choose what they want, but seeing the possibilities and being informed about them, that's the main thing.
Mm.
Because they have no idea sometimes they spend $100,000 in 1 or 2 years not getting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And yet I'll be talking to people and I'll say, look, it's only going to cost you $500 to get this is a few years ago. Oh no, it's too much money. I've
Yeah,
already
I
spent
know.
$100,000. I can't spend $500.
That's right. That's right. They come to me. They pay me what they pay me. I said, if you had to pay me to work with you one-on-one when they come to the group, probably your money were gone already because the support that I give them, it's very hands-on, right? And they get very surprised because they are so used to get ripped off by the agencies that they get suspicious about everything that is offered to them. So
Mm,
that's very sad and it breaks my heart to be
mm, mm,
hearing.
mm. There was a guy I worked with. He was from Iran. He was working in Sydney. He was a mining engineer. He applied for 500 or 600 jobs over 5 years. He got himself a job working, doing importing ceiling fixtures, and then he was, he's pretty good at what he was doing. He'd been there working there for 5 years, but then during the property downturn a little while ago, a few years ago in Sydney, he was down. He was earning about $50,000 a year. He had 3 children, couldn't survive over there, and I saw his resume when I was looking for mining engineers, and I've been doing it long enough where I can sort of sometimes I can read between the lines, and we had to end up having a very long discussion, or more than an hour, maybe even 2 hours, and because I had to interview him, and I had to really dig really deep to understand the companies and what he did, what he actually really did. And then once I understood that, then I realized, man, that resume is crap. You're not going to get anywhere with that.
That's right. That's what I see it too.
I spent 2 months working with him. He got it before he even finished doing the work. Once he got his resume sorted out, once we started to work on his personal branding and positioning, he got a job paying $150,000 as a senior mining engineer in Western Australia. He relocated the family. He's been doing that for 2.5 years now with
See,
Regis Gold.
it's so wonderful.
Mm.
Ah, and do you work with people from East Coast as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I have two mentees now there. One is international import and exports and supply chain, a very high skilled in Sydney. And I have another sales person in Brisbane. But in Brisbane, she needs to improve her English because for sales is something that you need to be more able to communicate. So I'm looking for more admin work to be to be able to get used to the office situation and start talking more. But she's very clever because she but he's not made up his own company here as a cleaner. So she employs people, but she said she's tired of doing it. She want to come back to what she did used to do before. It was communication sales, but it's the English that is a barrier for her. It still like needs to improve to be able to get a sales role. So
Mm. Mm.
yeah. So yeah, lots of things. It's wonderful and I enjoy helping people as you. So you see the difference in how people can become themselves and find the pleasure of doing what they do.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. So Peter, thank you very much. The
You're welcome.
next step for us is this video you'll be added at the beginning and the end, so to get the things rounded. And I will send you a link with your premiere when it's ready to go to YouTube, so you can distribute, you can watch, and that's it. And I'll tag you on LinkedIn. I normally take a little bit of longer because to put on LinkedIn to give more space when the premiere is on YouTube. Then 1 or 2 weeks later, I redo the marketing on LinkedIn and also on Instagram. I'm not sure if you're on Instagram, but I do on Instagram too.
Yeah, I don't do anything on Instagram at the moment.
Yeah. So, and the other thing you said you are preparing videos for branding yourself. So, do you have anyone working with you right now?
Um, oh, you mean like video
Yeah,
production?
videographer.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't have
I have
anyone
a
like
good one for you if you wanna. It's
yeah.
one of my mentees, and he's a top-notch man working with cinema, and has been here for 6 or 7 months. So we are working together, and He could get a job if it was not for his visa. There was only 2 months left, and he and his girlfriend are applying for another one. That was a big mistake because the girl is a human resource, pretty good, but is a student. So yeah. So I said it is the main thing is being a student and having part-time opportunity. So I told her, look, the government now is now paying for people to get their qualification recognized, their skills assessed for free. Apply for that, right? So even it's free, they get freaked out. What can I do? Yeah. So, and I have been working with them. She's more with me. I did help him with his resume. But I said to him, your profession needs a lot of network because people need to get to know your work and how you do it. And then you'll be able to grow because it's how photographers, they work the same way. It's a word of mouth. You go and people help you to grow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have been helping him. So tomorrow I have one session with him because he's helping me to last month when I did launch my second cycle of mentoring, I did all my videos for promo with him.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. He says he's pretty nice and pretty good. And one day he left my place at 2:30 a.m. So
What?
yeah. We did because it was last minute. We had to finish everything. So,
Yeah.
and then he stayed with me until 2:30 a.m. So we
Gee.
completed everything. And then the other day I said, oh, look, I needed to finalize this. So by 6 a.m. he was here at my door for us to start work again.
Jeez.
Yeah. This kind of launching, it's crazy, Peter. It's crazy. So you need to be very willing to give the time to do it. So, yeah, that was wonderful. Has
Sounds
been okay. So let's keep in touch and enjoy your evening. And thank you very much. And if
You're
I
welcome.
send some people to you, and if you need anything, let me know.
I'll
Okay.
do that for sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Goodbye.